Hey there and welcome back to Rimworld. My name is Pete and today we, somewhat unexpectedly I feel, complete the grand finale of Rimworld Odyssey with the spacefaring Stars of Som. We've got a few lovely surprises lined up later in the video, including something very special for the outro, but let's not get ahead of ourselves just yet. For now, a quick look at how we got here. In the last episode, after acquiring our 7th graph core, we were informed of the location of the Mech Hive, the central hub of all mechanoid activity on the planet. Destroying it could end the mechs for good, so to prepare for the fight, we sought out a mechanoid platform and tested our combat abilities. Later on, we cleared an abandoned space dock of scavengers, and now we already find ourselves preparing for the Heeze's most important journey yet. Also, Simon here was born to the proud parents Nick and Deborah, but his presence will most likely not affect the outcome of this series. Now, having just landed in the lava fields, we can get our hands on some valuable obsidian, the best material to make sharp weapons with, although we have two very good ones already for Alex and Saber, our two melee specialists, so unless a creativity inspiration comes along, I doubt we'll be able to make an upgrade. Very fittingly then, just before we set out on our grand assault against the Mech Hive, Zero throws a party for everyone, an important mood booster to ensure that our pawns are in good spirits once we fly back into orbit. In the evening, we can also finally bring in a large psychoid harvest, and soon after cook up a nice batch of psychite tea that should last us for many days and keep our addicts' needs in check, another crucial element to preventing mental breaks in space. Our obsidian mining efforts, by the way, have gained us almost 3,000 units worth of the stuff, and the map is still not exhausted yet. I believe there are only 4 or 5 of these deposits on the entire planet, but as you can see, making the journey over to one can be extremely worthwhile, especially if you're running a more melee-focused colony, which we unfortunately are not. Still, obsidian is also a very good material to make artwork with a beauty rating that's actually higher than that of silver, but won't produce nearly as much colony wealth. Now, early on the next morning, Brian successfully tames a female hare, let's name it Valkyr, as usual after another channel supporter in the naming rights tier or above. Valkyr will now be paired up with the male Moribund to join our ever-growing list of animals. And just to quickly address this, while today marks the grand finale in which we try to defeat the Mech Hive, there will be a bonus video coming a little later where we attempt to build a proper zoo in space, ideally featuring a pair of each animal in the game, the Brian's Ark that we discussed several times throughout this series. Because of the scope of that project, however, that video will likely be a bit more condensed, a bit more heavily edited. In the style of these videos in this series, we would otherwise probably take several hours to reach that goal. Now, with the notification popping up that the Heeze is ready to be launched, we pack up our spare solar panels, wait until Master Craftsman Brent finishes another suit of recon armor, and then prepare for liftoff, but not to space, at least not yet. As you can see, we won't be able to reach the Mech Hive in one trip anyway, so let's fly over to this little island here, where temperatures will be comfortable and trees to make fuel with will be plenty. As we touch down, we lead our animals out to graze and immediately start going after the map's valuables, several veins of components and, like I said, plenty of wood to chop. We also want to fill our freezer to the brim with food for the journey ahead. A herd of buffalo offers the perfect opportunity to do so. In the evening, we are then informed that Zero has manufactured a bionic spine, and we are going to use it now to cure 77-year-old Steve's bad back. While Steve is mostly just making art and not fighting on the front lines, the combination of his frail condition and the bad back has slowed his movement speed down to a crawl, and that's just unnecessary time wasted going from A to B, so hopefully this will give him back some mobility. Zero also experiences a shooting inspiration, useful considering what lies ahead, although for now we are not quite ready for liftoff again just yet. Before we head back into space, let us make room to install that second gravship shield generator we obtained as a quest reward a while back. For maximum shield coverage, we need to place it somewhere centralized, and so our dining/common room will receive a small overhaul, with the nutrient paste dispenser moving a little further over to the side here, and all furniture slowly following suit. In the middle of all that, we can also give Alex a bionic eye. In an early encounter with a wasp trap, her right eye was badly scarred, and by now we have the means to fix these things. A new Boomalop calf was also born in the background. We'll name it Seksuga. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Welcome to the team. In the evening, the shield generator then moves directly opposite to the first one. Our common room did sacrifice some size in the process, but it is still deemed extremely impressive, so our pawns won't complain. On the following morning, we also load up our shuttle, the Black Shadow, with an abundance of trade goods. At this point, we can essentially clear out everything we're not actively using at the moment. We are unlikely to gain any more colonists or significantly switch up our combat strategy, not to mention the hundreds of units of fur and leather we have stockpiled. Young Furion can now pilot the Black Shadow to a nearby settlement, and after a short flight we can do some trading. Selling off most, but not all of our goods, we can purchase a few more advanced components and plasteel. And yes, I am actually planning to also get rid of the Psylink Neuroformer. I think we will finish this playthrough without Psycasts. Now, these guys here did unfortunately not have enough silver on hand to buy it, so we're going to need to make another trip to their neighbors, and this time we can get rid of the device and instead purchase 2 dogs. 2 Labrador Retrievers, one of those types of animals that cannot be found in the wild, but of course we want to have them to complete our collection. As Furion and the Black Shadow then safely return, we can give out 2 new names. The female here will be named Jeps, the male Vash, and we will begin training them immediately. As haulers, they might become an important part of the crew. And that crew will spend the evening celebrating, one last dance party to blow off some steam, hopefully raise the mood and get ready for the final leg of this adventure. At this point, pretty much everything is in place. One more night we'll spend on the planet's surface, then it's time to lift off. For now, the party ends as a fun affair, a +8 mood bonus for everyone, and an ideology development point. But I like the Stars of Som the way they are. There is no need to force any last-minute changes. Now, as you can see, we are constructing a cryptosleep casket here, with the sole purpose of housing one particularly hungry animal, alpha beaver Loxins. In a biome like this, Loxins will be able to still her insatiable appetite due to an abundance of trees. In space, meanwhile, her hunger rage, which is almost twice that of a full-grown elephant, would quickly carve through our kibble supplies, so we'll put Loxins into suspended animation by administering an anesthetic and placing her into the casket. And with that, we can now make our final preparations. As the night sets in, our fighters all gear up for the dangers posed by both the mechanoids and the vacuum. Our animals are already being led into the cargo bay, vac barriers, shield generators and oxygen pumps are being fired up, and we eagerly await the trip to the Mech Hive. Before we launch the Heezer again though, I want to announce something very special. Remember this guy, Cambia, the ice sheet cannibal? The guy who started it all those years ago? Well, as unbelievable as it may sound, his adventure is now available in book form. Waiting for the Sun is an over 2,000-page long novel by Dawn Pierce, an author who has published several fantasy and horror books, and decided to dedicate her craft to the story of Cambia and his band of ice sheet survivalists. Needless to say, I feel incredibly honored to be able to promote this. Waiting for the Sun is now available for pre-order on Amazon. For now, the pre-order is for the digital ebook version, but physical hardcover and paperback editions are coming soon at the end of the month, and there's even an audiobook planned for later this year. Truly, this is one of the most flattering moments in the channel's history for me. I am so deeply humbled to have my series serve as the inspiration for this, and I'm eagerly awaiting the full release so that I can relive the tale of Cambia from an entirely new perspective. So go ahead and pre-order now or bookmark the page for the physical editions later. And just to clarify, all proceeds here go to the author. This is her own work. I'm just a very flattered YouTuber, happy to see one of his stories adapted in such a wonderful new way. And with that, let's initiate the launch procedure one more time. Let's bring the Hiza into orbit and attack the Mech Hive, so that the nasty robots will no longer bother this world and our future attempts to build a zoo in space. And for the perfect atmosphere here, let's bring in the new Rimworld Odyssey end credit music. There's a reason we're listening to it now, and it's not just the fact that it sounds absolutely epic. What we have in the middle of the map here is the mechanoids AI persona core that we want to destroy. However, it is currently still protected by so-called cerebrex stabilizers that we need to take out first to lower the core's defenses. Those stabilizers are hidden in the buildings around us, likely in the larger ones, and obviously we can't just waltz in there and destroy them. The station is also swarming with mechanoids and turrets. There's about 15 or so of these smaller groups protecting a turret each, and well, we've got no time to waste. Let's head outside and begin combat. This is phase 1 of our plan, clearing out all turrets so that our pawns can move about the station freely. Those turrets actually have a pretty high attack range, and even though there are plenty of buildings scattered around to block the line of fire, eventually we will need to send out our colonists to hack open lots and lots of security doors, and we definitely do not want them to get shot at while doing so. The turret's range is actually so high that there is not a single weapon in the entire game that can outrange them. A sniper rifle comes up just shy of the 46 tile range of the mini slugger turret. Otherwise, it would be possible to take them out from afar with little to no risk. In practice, the presence of the guarding mechanoids of course makes this a little bit more complicated, not to mention that turrets frequently tend to overlap each other's firing ranges. Also, we should not overcomplicate this too much. While the mini slugger turrets have the edge range-wise, their accuracy is terrible from afar, and even if they land a hit, their damage is not exactly spectacular either. So I found that the approach we are currently taking works best, just rushing our entire crew from group to group, with our 4 scythers leading the charge to soak up some damage here and there. Ultimately, the number and types of mechanoids that are protecting these turrets are probably the main reason why I find the Mech Hive to be a bit underwhelming, at least in this early stage, considering that this is the all-important central hub of all mechanoid activity on the entire planet. The most dangerous mechanoids we're facing here are probably the Lancers and Tesserons. The Scorchers can be a little annoying as well, but there's enough open ground to take them out before they really become a problem, and the rest is just pikemen, scythers, lancers and militars. No centipedes, none of the larger mechs added in the biotech expansion like tunnelers or centurions, and of course also none of the mechanoid bosses, Diabolus, War Queen or Apocryton. All in all, this makes clearing out the Mech Hive exterior more tedious than dangerous, one large reason why we are even able to launch this attack in the first place. If this station was protected by a proper large-scale force of mechanoids, things would look a lot worse for us. But there is perhaps a reason why resistance is comparatively thin this early on, and well, we are taking some damage. Nonetheless, we have just cleared out all but one turret group, and that last one will likely not cause trouble. So let's shift our attention now to the turrets protecting the cerebrex core in the middle here. These pack a bit more of a punch, and yet Nelgraf, his 2 Archotech legs, and a jump pack should be enough to take care of them. Essentially, what we'll do here is abuse the turret's cooldown. For the auto-charge turrets, that's a 4-second window that we can use to fire, and as long as we stick to cover here, we should be relatively safe. these charge turrets have pretty poor accuracy. With Nailgraph's Architect legs, we can also quickly dodge back into cover once the autochargers start firing, although it is probably not needed. One alternative approach would be to move below the turret's minimum range and attack it from melee. However, that would not give us adequate cover from the other turrets and also put us at the risk of suffering damage from the explosion. With the Inferno turrets then, things are even easier. Their cooldown is a whopping 17 seconds, way more than we need to destroy one. And there we go. That's phase 1 of the plan complete, and phase 2 is actually already in motion. We now need to hack a good 15 to 20 security doors to gain access to the various smaller and larger buildings on the station, all of which could house one of the cerebrex stabilizers. Of course, chances are high that we find the stabilizers inside the larger buildings, but that doesn't mean the smaller ones aren't worth looking into. Who knows what else we might find. Now, an eclipse striking in the middle of repairs and recovery is of course not ideal, but we have enough batteries filled up to hopefully last us the entire duration, so I'm not too worried about this. For the most part, we spent the night treating our injured, and most of them are making quick recoveries. Our night owls keep hacking doors, and we also need to deal with more mechanoids. The cerebrex core here is surrounded by 4 Mech Hive birthers, unique devices that cannot be destroyed and will regularly produce new mechanoids. The higher our colony wealth, the faster new mechs will appear. So we will have to keep an eye on this a few times per day, but as long as we take the mechs out as soon as they spawn, we should have little trouble here. On the following morning then, the sky is still dark due to the eclipse, most of the important doors have been hacked, and we can begin phase 3 of our plan, searching for the cerebrex stabilizers. For now, a small scouting party is sent ahead. Any building that has mechs and no stabilizer in it is immediately closed off again. I have no intentions of making this any harder than necessary. Occasionally, combat is unavoidable though. Passing a little too close to the door can sometimes trigger a dormant group of mechs, but thankfully this one here is small, and apart from Deborah, no one takes any injuries. We move on, find more mechs and nothing else of value in the next building here, crack open the one close by and see a similar sight, so on to the next. Here we trigger a lone scyther, not much more than simple target practice for our pawns. The building to the southeast of the station meanwhile looks interesting. It has more than one room, and so I think we have little other choice but to fight our way through to find out whether or not a cerebrex stabilizer is somewhere inside. Now, with the first chamber cleared, we can move along to the building's east side. The large room in the middle here has no threats waiting for us, but after hacking another security door, the one on the far east does. Once again, nothing too crazy. Thanks to the mech VATs, we can trigger the appearance of new enemies in a very controlled manner. However, the fight does take place in relatively close quarters, so a few scratches and bruises are sadly unavoidable. Most of the damage is soaked up by our own mechanoids though, so eventually we can move on to the final chamber, and disappointingly, there is no cerebrex stabilizer in sight. Instead, a few more mechs and turrets need to be defeated, not the most difficult task. As a reward for our efforts, we can then loot a reinforced mortar barrel. Well, not exactly what we're looking for. At this point, it is probably time to heal up for a few of our pawns, but Mechanitor Brent remains curious and ventures out all on his own. After hacking another door, he steps inside, only to find a second layer of security. After bypassing this one as well, he can loot a hermetic crate for a book. Not exactly sure how this ended up here, but I suppose we'll take it. Just in that moment, the fresh batch of mechanoids spawned near the cerebrex core decides to launch an attack on our ship. Yes, this can happen too, they will not idly sit in the middle forever, but even though Nick also suffers an unfortunately timed mental break here, we should likely not have too much trouble defending against the attack. After all, a Militar, a Scyther and 2 Lancers, that is nothing overly dangerous at this point in the game. A few hours later then, Fabian takes a risk and peeks into an isolated mech chamber, but apart from hostiles he doesn't find anything. Cat does the same very early on the next morning, this building here with another double security layer, but inside a hermetic crate and yet another book. This is starting to get curious. Now, as you may have noticed, the eclipse has come to an end, and with the light of a new morning, we have Saber investigate 2 more of the smaller buildings here. But once more we only find hostiles inside, so let's quickly leave again. Eventually then we assemble a group of fighters near one of the larger buildings to the north of the station. Maybe this is where we find the first cerebrex stabilizer, although initially the only thing we find are more enemies. The room to the left here offers a lot less resistance, so we enter through there, quickly dispatch of mechs and turrets, and then use the door leading north, and there we are. We have found the first cerebrex stabilizer. This device, along all others like it, will need to be destroyed before we can interact with the cerebrex core. And well, since it is only protected by a handful of mechanoids, let's get to it. Now at this point you are also about to see what I consider to be the best way to deal with these stabilizers, and unfortunately it's the anomaly ending all over again. For those unaware, you'll see what I mean in just a moment. For now we can fire at the stabilizer here with Kyler, but we want to make sure not to destroy it just yet. Attacking it does not have any consequences, destroying it however might. More on that later. For the moment, let's leave the building again. We most likely won't find a second stabilizer inside, so let's crack open another one. And well, that was easy. This time the stabilizer sits conveniently right behind the entrance door. It is also slightly more heavily guarded, but after the arrival of a few reinforcements, we begin combat nonetheless. By the way, the issue I had earlier with the exterior defenses being somewhat underwhelming, that unfortunately persists on the interior as well, especially when it comes to the rooms with these stabilizers. I had hoped for something a bit more challenging. Just a single Diabolus or War Queen protecting each stabilizer would, in my opinion, present a nice threat that also fits the theme of this being the grand final assault. As it stands, the mechanoids' defenses remain a threat mostly due to their numbers here, but if you proceed with caution, a large percentage of them can be circumvented, and don't get me wrong, I like that the game rewards you for a cautious approach, but I also believe that a not at all combat-focused crew like ours should not have this easy of a time clearing out the station. Once again, you will see a possible reason why things are the way they are a little later. For now, we can repeat the entire procedure of whittling down the second stabilizer here, all while making sure it remains intact with just a fraction of health remaining. To finish off the day, we then clear out another group of mechanoids from the cerebrex core in the middle of the map, and then send our pawns to rest and recover. Tomorrow could be a big day for them. That next day then begins just like the previous one ended, by clearing out a freshly hatched batch of mechanoids from the cerebrex core, before we then venture out to open the third large building on the eastern side of the map. This time our Scyther Cosmic Otter scouts ahead, but behind the 2 doors it can open we only find more mechanoids, so let's have our gravship pilot Nelgraf hack open the security door here. No mechs, no treasure and no stabilizer behind it, for the most part a welcome sight, and a similar picture in the room leading off to the right here. Finally then, we find the third stabilizer at the northern end of the facility, once again protected by a handful of mechanoids, but really the threat level here is minimal, and we have the room cleared out in no time. And so, let us now once again go to work on another cerebrex stabilizer, to prepare for the fourth and final phase of our plan. Before we initiate that though, let me briefly interrupt one last time to announce that this Series 2 now has merchandise over on shop.petecomplete.com. The design of Heezer, Brian's Colossus Toad turned gravship, was created by Toby Blanchard and will commemorate the series, as is tradition now when one of our Rimworld adventures comes to an end. So grab something if you like, or don't. Either way, let's get on with it. As you can see, we have most of our crew now assembled near the cerebrex core and can now send out one pawn each to the 3 stabilizers. This is what I meant by this being the anomaly ending all over again, because with Alex, Saber and Nelgraf, 3 of our longest serving crew members now in place, we can give all 3 of them the command to destroy the stabilizer in front of them, which triggers an immediate response. For the destruction of each stabilizer, the mechanoids send one massive wave of reinforcements and drop pods, just like destroying the void structures triggered massive waves of entities in the anomaly ending. And once again, none of this really matters anymore, because with all 3 stabilizers destroyed, the cerebrex core is now defenseless and can be interacted with. And who better suited for that task than our mechanitor Brent? Inspecting the core will take roughly 15 seconds, hardly enough time for the mechanoids to make it over to us, and that's probably a good thing, because unlike the paltry force protecting the station initially, these reinforcements consist of the absolute top-tier units. But like I said, it hardly matters, because Brent has gained access to the cerebrex core now, a massive brain-like neural mesh that commands all mechanoids on the planet. The game now offers 2 options: destroying the mech presence or scavenging the core for technology, but I think our path is clear and has been that way for a long time now. We came here with one goal in mind, and that is to end the mechanoid threat once and for all. Let's not get intrigued by their technology, and instead destroy the core just like we planned. And there we are. Brent begins to tear apart the hair-thin cerebral mesh inside the cerebrex core. The mesh twists and groans as if alive, electricity arcs along the latticework frame, then, in an instant, all goes dark and lifeless. The mechanoid whirring stops. Here and all across the planet, mechanoids begin to permanently deactivate, no longer under the control of the Mech Hive. The mechanoid threat is over. But your story continues. And indeed it does, at least for a little while longer, which is part of the reason we're not letting the credits roll just yet. The destruction of the cerebrex core officially completes the gravship questline and deactivates all mechanoids, including those in the middle of their assaults. They now lie here on the station, not destroyed, but permanently disabled. The Mech Hive's defeat also gains us a hefty plus 50 bonus to several faction relations, enough to make a new ally. Our mechs, meanwhile, still function and help us destroy the remains of the cerebrex core. This yields 300 plasteel, 5 advanced components and an AI persona core, so if we wanted to, we could now finally build a spaceship to travel further than anywhere the Heezer can go. I think that will be a story for another time though. Our next and final liftoff of the series is just around the corner. But first, let us destroy all of those deactivated mechanoid bosses. In total, we've got 6 Diaboli, 2 War Queens and 2 Apocrytons on the map, defenseless and just waiting to be shredded. The signal, power focus and nanostructuring chips they drop can still be picked up and can also still be used to manufacture powerful mechanical gear or even to gestate new mechanoids. Only those hostile to us are permanently deactivated, but we can still build a mech army of our own. That too, I think, will be a tale for another time. While half of our crew is busy destroying mechanoids, we can now also explore the entire rest of the buildings on this station. Most of the valuables we have collected already, but a few things still want to be looted. Eventually, another night sets across the now deactivated Mech Hive, and after our pawns have blown up the last Apocryton, we can watch as they eagerly haul chips, plasteel components and that AI persona core back on board of the Heezer. And as the sun slowly rises on the next morning and every last valuable on the station is safely secured in our gravship's cargo bay, let us initiate one last launch procedure and say goodbye to the Heezer and the Stars of Som. For today's outro, I have one last small surprise for you. I actually licensed some music for this one. The song is called Weltraumspaziergang, Spacewalk in English, and it is by the German artist Paul Eisen, whose work I have been following for quite a while now. I think it fits the tone of the series nicely, a little bit more upbeat and humorous. You can find a translation and a link to the song in the comments and the description below. And, well, it is my way to say thank you for your help shaping another wonderful series. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, then go ahead and leave a thumbs up. And of course, you can also subscribe, grab some of that new merch, or support me here on YouTube or on Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers. Discovery 4 computers now have primary control.
Die haben Mondpreise auf dem Mars, checken die noch was auf dem Weg Richtung Jupiter, ticken die jetzt Gras auf der Milchstraße Stau, weil die da immer bauen, ey, ab dem großen Stern tut sich was. Und ich sag dir, nimm mich mit, wie früher, Schritt für Schritt, Schritt für Schritt. Dinner auf den Saturn, Picknick auf dem Mond, da will eh keiner wohnen. Wir gehen im Weltraum spazieren, ich war lange nicht mehr hier. Das schwarze Loch jetzt blau, doch die Aussicht vertraut. Wir gehen im Weltraum spazieren, was soll schon passieren? Das schwarze Loch jetzt blau, doch die Aussicht vertraut. Und der Polarstern geht auf, ist der nicht schon verkauft? Der Neptun geklaut, oh, hier will jeder raus auf der Welt.